Alright everyone, so my canvas right now is 1920 by 1080. It's a high definition resolution. So I'm going to start by just drafting out the storyboards, showing you the way that I do my storyboards and this project in particular. This project was done for a Nickelodeon 2-minute it was a 2-minute like submission. They wanted shorts so I could see if they could find anything that they could develop. Unfortunately for me, I didn't get any contracts or it didn't get picked up, but they were really kind when they emailed me about my short. So right now I'm just creating a grid. It's not to any dimensions. It's just so I'm not drawing on a blank screen, because drawing on a blank screen can really mess you up. So you want to create a grid of some sort, either vanishing point or horizon line, or multiple vanishing points, or just a grid, to not just be staring at a blank piece of paper or a blank screen and trying to draw something within that box. Even creating a frame sometimes can help you out. So the story for this short was a Dream of Consciousness. I thought briefly about it. I didn't write anything down. I had no script for it. I was basically writing and creating the storyboards at the same time. So all the dialogue within it was not predetermined. Studio Takawatsu, um, the characters that this class is using is based off of characters from Studio Takawatsu, the company that I own, and we're allowing this class to use these characters for these class projects. So the characters were pre-made. They were already designed. I I had maybe 2 or 3 images of the characters I was going to use, and then after I did these storyboards, I went back and did turnarounds and added some text about some bio text for each character that I was using within the short. For Nickelodeon can see that there's work that was being done beyond just this really rough storyboard. So right now I'm recreating the storyboard and how I went about doing it in the initial draft. So the first thing I want to do is start with an establishing shot. This is an overhead shot, a bird's eye view of a stadium. It's not necessarily like a real stadium, but it's a setting that I created just so I could have my characters in an environment. One of the specifications for the short submissions was one setting. I think maybe possibly 2 settings was like at max, and up to 3 characters. And the characters themselves were supposed to be, I think, under 12 years old or something like that. So I'm just labeling arenas to make sure that it's not misconstrued. So when I draw, I usually start off with some perspective lines if uh, I have the time to, which you should always have the time to. And I use elementary shapes to sketch out the anatomy of my characters, and then on top of that, I do a rough outline, and then after that, I go back and I do a cleanup, and then after that, coloring, shadow, and highlights and stuff like that, effects. So in storyboarding, I wanted to introduce a character, but not reveal the character right off the bat. Not show that this is my female character Sylvie, like right off the bat. There's a little ambiguity, even though you can tell that the character's wearing a skirt. Can't see their face. So it could be a boy in a kilt for all we know at this moment. So I started from an overhead shot, and I cut to another overhead shot, which leaves a little bit more ambiguity. And we have the reveal of the character is holding a ball. You can see some of the skirt. You can see a piece of the arm. And at this point, the character should have a baseball glove in the left arm. So then I cut to a side view of the character pitching. So she's in a contour pose. So her line of action is kind of making her bend, giving her some action, even though she's a 2D character, and her arms are bent. And one of her legs are lifted, and she gives the appearance that she might be in motion. And once again, I neglected to put a baseball glove on this character on the left hand, even though there should be one. So since this is just a draft, I'm not really focusing that much on details. There's lots of details that I'm leaving out since I'm just sketching right now. So I'm using Sketchbook Pro 7. It's by Autodesk, and I'm using a Macintosh. I'm also using a Cintiq by Wacom, so it makes drawing a lot easier. So after I cut from a side view, I cut to a front view, and the ball that she's pitching will have uh, perspective, so it'll change perspective. It'll go from where she's standing in the mid-ground, and it'll fly basically towards camera to the foreground. So it gives the cut some depth. And she's in a lunging motion. And I was just sketching out her hand just so I know where her hand will be, or when someone comes in and animates this, they'll know what the hand position to be in, or roughly. So let's say if I ever wanted to make a full animatic and have this ball fly towards the screen, there won't just be an empty space after it leaves her hand, and we see behind the ball. So I'm not really concerning myself with composition right now. I'm just trying to get down to storytelling images. And these days in storyboarding for animation, they companies usually want to like what appears to be almost like animating the whole show by yourself, which is kind of absurd. But I see lots of animatics these days from big companies, and they have the storyboard artists do the animatics and add lots and lots of keyframing and layouts. So as I cut from a front view of Sylvie, we turn the camera around and we see basically what she was looking at. What she was looking at is Epi batting and Cac being the catcher. So Epi is also in a contour position, giving him a lot of action. The camera's it's a little lower. It's not a full worm's eye view, but it's has a tilt up. So we're basically at like Cac's eye level, and we get to see the upper torso of Epi as he's holding the bat. So if you can, I would suggest that you follow along and sketch with me while I'm sketching. And this is all in real time. I'm not speeding up the video at all. So for this Nickelodeon short, it had to be comedy for children. So that's why I chose these characters that I initially had created, which is a baseball team of more or less young misfits. They're not cruel or mean misfits. They're just misunderstood, kind of, a bit nerdy. There's you know, Sylvie's mother wants her to be a ballerina, and she wants to be a baseball player. Epi's kind of smaller than all of the other players, and he has these giant hair and these big glasses. We have Cac, who's very lanky, and he has gauged ears, like gauged eared piercings. He's super pale, has a bowl shaped haircut. We have a fairy. Uh, he's um, he's an actual fairy, and he's just part of the team. He's like their coach. He's not in the short, but if you ever see any pictures in the near future of this show that's under development right now, uh, he might be in those photos unless he gets cut out of the show or out of the cast. So there's about uh, 5 baseball players that I have right now for Royal Furies. So getting back to storyboarding, right now what I'm doing is I'm cutting and pasting epi, since in the panel after the one I just finished drawing, it's basically the same pose. So I don't need to redraw him. I'm just gonna basically just cut and paste him, save time, save energy, and I could focus on the character that's actually be more animated inside of the shot, or the cut, which is baseball, as well as cack in the background. So for the storyboard, I had to make it fast. I had to make it uh, funny somewhat. I still think it's a little funny. It could just be me, um, but I think it has its charm, and I think it would work well if it was ever produced. So I found out about this contest more or less, I think like 3 days before it ended. So I rushed over a 3 day period to create all these images, um, do my character turnarounds, write out a little bit of a bio, do these storyboards prior to that, and I also created an animatic, and I also created a web page so Nickelodeon can, one, download the animatic if they wanted to, or stream the animatic that I had. They could also look at my IMDb resume, and they could also see other images that I have on there of these characters, like facial expression sheets and original designs. So when you're storyboarding, especially if you're doing it digitally, you can save lots of time by just cutting and pasting. Or if you have a program like uh, Storyboard Pro 4, or whatever volume allows you to, you could add your cuts into the global library, meaning you can reuse those assets, and it's basically just a drag and drop um, system, which you'll see in other videos that I've created for this class when I'm doing a cleanup of these storyboards. So it's good to use a lot of convex and contour poses for your lines of action. You want to keep your lines inconsistent. You want to keep the line of action moving if you can. I'm not great at it, but I'm still, you know, I'm still working at it, and every day I try to learn something new, and I just have to keep on boarding and, you know, keep doing it over and over again, practice, 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 and because you don't know what you don't know. So classes like this, if let's say you do know something, you might learn something new, or it could just be a refresher course for you. So as you can see in the background, getting back to the video, I label the props, like for instance the ball, just in case uh, you miss it. Since it's such a small object, you want to make sure you identify things so they don't look just like half circles, or whatnot. Half circles pertaining to the ball. And as Epi gets hit with the baseball that Sylvie threw at him, we see Epi's physical reaction to the ball, and we see Cac's facial uh, facial response to the ball hitting Epi. So I use the same process for the rest of the show. A show meaning picture show, not like television show only. Show can also mean a picture show, meaning a movie, and or television. And I'm constantly saving just in case something happens to the program and it crashes. So I would suggest you constantly save, and even save like multiple files. So this was the beginning of the whole 2 minutes, and I just uh, I just showed you my process for creating these boards. You can follow along with the video again and go back to the beginning and draw what I'm drawing. Draw it even better if you can. Just make sure you do it fast and you're not too focused on details at this moment. Right now, at this stage, you just want the idea down, and afterwards, you go back after you finish your boards and you go back and you clean up everything and you make the lines nice. And I'm just writing out the title cards that would be in the beginning of the credits, and that would end this video after I finish writing out these. So in the other videos, you'll see me um, cleaning up these boards. You'll see the other boards that I created, and you'll get the full idea of how to go about creating storyboards for animation. Now this is one process. I'm doing it digitally. I'm doing it with Storyboard Pro, which is a pro application by Toon Boom, and it's a great program. I would suggest it to any student or any professional or anyone learning how to do storyboards. You can do animatics and storyboards. You could also do layouts. You'll see Storyboard Pro in the later videos. This is actually Sketchbook Pro right now. So what I'm doing, getting back to the video, is I locked the opacity layer in Sketchbook Pro, and I'm just changing the blue to a gray, which looks more like a pencil. So it's easier to see once it's in gray. And the reason I do this is because uh, drawing in gray for me, it just tires out my eyes. So you do your sketching much like with like a blue uh, non photo graphic pencil, or like a coal erase pencil, and then after that you go and you either trace over it, clean it up a little bit, or you do your cleanup and you use a nice lead pencil. So that would be the wrap up for this video lesson, and come check out the other lessons and we could finish this process of how to storyboard for animation.